your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News Weekend Edition with Jeanette Roche.
Hello and thanks for joining us. The Alberta government says it's accepting recommendations from a recent report from both the Alberta Emergency Medical Services Provincial Advisory Committee report and the Independent Dispatch Review, and is working on a plan of action to carry them out. Health Minister Jason Copping says that includes fast-tracking ambulance transfers at emergency departments and empowering paramedics to assess a patient's condition on scene and decide whether they need to be taken to an ER by ambulance. Minister Jason Copping also says more ambulances are on the way.
Edmonton and Calgary will get 20 additional ambulances during the peak hours in the coming months. That's on top of the 19 ambulances we've already added this year in both cities. Putting those additional ambulances and EMS staff on the road in Edmonton and Calgary will speed up response times in the cities and in the surrounding communities. It means more ambulances can stay in their home community, such as right here in Spruce Grove.
Government officials say the report by PricewaterhouseCoopers says Alberta's central dispatch model follows world-leading practices and design. Alberta's Immigration and Trade Minister Rajan Sawhney announced a change to the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program. Sawhney says the province is working to attract more newcomers to help grow our economy and to address labor shortages in key areas.
The modification that I am announcing today will allocate 25% of Alberta Express Entry Stream nominations to potential immigrants with skills in high demand who also have an immediate family member, so a parent, child, or sibling living in Alberta.
Industry experts say Alberta will experience skilled workers shortages into 2025, mainly due to industry growth and retiring workers. Officials say Alberta currently has 100,000 job openings across all sectors. It appears as though Premier Danielle Smith has backed off her promise of COVID pardons. That is according to our legislative reporter and Alberta correspondent for the National Post, Tyler Dawson. He says the Premier suggested that she was going to speak with Crown prosecutors in an attempt to get them to drop charges or to ensure that they were reaching a very high bar with the cases that they were pursuing.
This ended up in a very strange situation because the NDP said, oh my goodness, she's interfering with the administration of justice. She's reaching out to crowns. They're independent. And then the Justice Ministry said, well, you know, we've checked with the Alberta Prosecution Service and Danielle Smith has not spoken to them. But Danielle Smith had said at a press conference she'd been in contact with them. So really, really unclear exactly what has happened there. And the NDP is, of course, calling for an investigation from a third party. Danielle Smith saying she misspoke. Bit of a mess. But I think the takeaway from it is, you know, this was a very early promise from Danielle Smith. She made this at the UCP convention that she was going to work hard to try and stop some of these prosecutions, to come up with pardons. And it's certainly looking like she's backing away from that at this point.
According to Tyler Dawson, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he would like to see Alberta transition away from oil and gas, but this obviously does not sit well with Premier Danielle Smith and the Alberta government. Dawson discusses with us if Premier Smith would consider invoking the Alberta Sovereignty Act to shoot down Ottawa's proposal.
At this point, it seems like it's sort of, you know, on the back burner. It's a tool that they might choose to use, but they haven't come straight out and said, you know, we're going to use this. You know, there's a few possible explanations for that. Potentially, it's not clear what the Sovereignty Act might do in this circumstance. Might be one option. And so they're waiting for the legislation from the federal government to see what is actually going to happen.
Premier Smith says she will fight Justin Trudeau's just transition with every tool at Alberta's disposal. Smith says the initiative would kill thousands of jobs in Alberta. She also commented that support for Alberta's NDP is support for Jagmeet Singh Justin Trudeau federal alliance.
A lot of people don't know this, but it's really important because when you buy a membership in the provincial NDP, you automatically get a membership in the federal NDP because they are the same party. Jagmeet Singh is Rachel Notley's boss under the constitution of the NDP. Also in 2019, Jagmeet Singh agreed to prop up Justin Trudeau's minority government in exchange for the Just Transition Act. So when I talk about the NDP Liberal coalition, I am talking about the NDP party of Notley and Singh in full cooperation with Trudeau's Liberal Party.
Up next, NHL Flame star Theo Fleury is working to get the messages of freedom to Canadians. Keep it right here for more on the battle for truth. Freedom movements continue to grow and build a strong following across Canada. One such organization is called Canadians for Truth. Former Calgary Flame star Theo Fleury works with that group in Calgary. He sat down with Hal Roberts to discuss its mission, which is to engage Canadians with information and stories about the importance of freedom. Have a look.
Now, Canadians for Truth appears to be much more than just a website. Now, your group actually has a facility in Calgary. I see the logo behind you there for your production work and other events. What's the true mission of Canadians for Truth, Theo?
I suggest we start a media company in Calgary, which has come to fruition. We have a beautiful 9,000 square foot office with a beautiful home studio that we've built. And we've already started our programming and just waiting for our new website to be built, which will be beginning of February, where you can see all of the programs that we have in the queue right now.
Now, I understand that there are a few other like-minded organizations that may be within an arm's length of the relationship with the CFT. Now, can you talk about maybe the importance of collaboration and developing a community to advocate for freedom? And you know what? I also see that on social media that you and figure skater Jamie Soleil often team up.
Yes. Yeah, we've been doing live events all over Western Canada. And, you know, the reason why we wanted to do that was to bring people together of like minds, share space, share thoughts, share ideas. You know, Canadians for Truth is basically a home and a place where every freedom-loving Canadian patriot can come and share ideas and thoughts, and you know, and eventually we want to turn this into you know, a federal political party as well, because what I see is, you know, after all the shenanigans in Ottawa, and I'm talking about the government, I'm not talking about the freedom lovers. I see that the freedom movement has been sort of pulled apart. And we thought, you know, by having an office and creating programming and having live events, you know, we could sort of bring that amazing energy and patriotism to one place, which is Canadians for Truth. And Canadians for Truth is basically for everybody who, over the last 3 years, has, you know, suffered job losses, you know, are struggling financially, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, we have a policy board here. We're working on policy moving forward so we can change the country and get it back to an even better country than what it was before, you know, Mr. Trudeau stepped in 7 years ago and destroyed our country.
You know, we have a provincial election as well coming up in May, and some would argue that we may see a federal one sometime as well this year, Theo. Now, do you see a role for Canadians for Truth working to get the voters out to the polls and really work to increase the turnout of freedom-minded Canadians?
Yeah, 100%. You know, we're here to help in any way, shape, or form, especially when it comes to freedom and like I said, discerning the truth. Spiritually like-minded people have come to Canadians for Truth, and you know, it seems like there's an attack on the big guy upstairs as well, and so you know, we want to bring that to the forefront as well. And you know, I think just get back to the basics. You know, the basics of what Canada was built on, and that was freedom and love of country and love of neighbor, and like I said, there's no reason why Canada should be in the state that we're in, especially with like I said, all the resources we have and all of the amazing, wonderful, smart, innovative people we have in this country. It's a shame that we're in the state that we're in.
So what do you say to your critics who tell you, Theo, listen, we have incredible freedoms already in this country. I can fly to Europe, visit some family. I can go to Cuba or Mexico for a holiday. So what's the problem here? I enjoy a lot of freedoms already.
Yeah, well, the thing about communism is it's a slow drip, right? They don't bring it in all at once. They're very sneaky and cowardly, and they lie, they cheat, they steal, they manipulate, they coerce, they use psychological warfare. So, yeah, you may think that you have freedoms now, but slowly they have been slowly taken away.
We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us. Many governments around the world, including our own federal government, are making advancements to reduce their use of fossil fuels. But there are those who are sounding the alarm on the actual costs to the environment, communities, and consumers. You can include Michelle Sterling in that group. She is the communications manager for the Friends of Science Society. She sat down with Naveen Day to discuss her report on the Trudeau Liberals' proposed just transition legislation. Take a look.
Your organization, Friends of Science, released a report on this proposed bill. What are some of the highlights from your report?
Well, I think the first question is just transition to what? If you look at the IEA, that's the International Energy Agency chart about Canada's total energy consumption, you'll find that wind and solar barely even surfaces on that chart. We're powered in this society by coal, natural gas, hydro, nuclear, oil, and some biomass. But wind and solar don't even figure. And wind and solar have to be made with oil, gas, and coal, huge quantities of oil, gas, and coal. So what are they contemplating that we would transition to, and what would those things be made from? Other aspects of it is if we phased out oil and gas in the West, where would we get the replacement income? Because I don't remember the exact figure. I think it's about 18% of our exports are for our GDP is from oil, gas, and coal. So, what's going to replace that for income? That income, and the taxes paid by oil, gas, and coal companies, that is what funds our educational institution, it funds our healthcare, paves our roads, it runs our society, pays our government. So where will that money come from? Because you can't export wind and solar, and we don't have any of the wind and solar facilities in Canada either. And it would be very difficult to set them up because, again, a lot of the materials, the critical minerals, come from China. So you say, okay, well, we have a critical mineral policy in Canada now, which we do, but it takes about 16 years to get a mine up and running. And actually, I just heard the other day from the Macdonald-Laurier Institute, they were saying that not one major project has been approved under the new Environmental Act. So that would be Bill 69. So this is more than 4 years. Nothing has been approved under it. So how are you going to get these mines approved when you won't approve a pipeline, which is, something that we know how to do, and we have many of them all over North America? How can it be done? Just transition to what? To when?
Could you just describe for a moment maybe the top 5 or 10 products that come from oil and gas? Because it's not just about gas and heat.
Well, it would be difficult to do the top 5, but let's start with the medical services industry. Almost all of modern medicine relies both on the energy from natural gas and coal and oil, and also the product stream. I mean, all the PPEs, all the masks, the gloves, the sterile use, single-use plastics that are used in surgery, almost everything, even pharmaceuticals, all of these things rely on byproducts from oil, gas, and coal. The modern medicine would vanish overnight without it. So, do we really want to go back to kitchen table surgery and people boiling strips of old sheets as bandages? Clothing is made from different elements of oil and gas, plastics, all the plastic bottles. Do we really want to get rid of all those things?
Now, Alberta shares its prosperity with other provinces through equalization payments. Now, much of that money comes from our oil and gas. How will other provinces be affected by these numerous Alberta industries being stifled or shut down?
People don't realize that a lot of people work in Alberta. Some of them are traveling workers. They live in BC, Saskatchewan, the Maritimes. They come here, they work in the industry for maybe a few weeks and go home, or maybe a few months and go home. And they take their riches, if you like, back home, and they build prosperity at home. Maybe they start a small business, they buy their house that they've longed to buy. Many of our products heat the homes in other provinces. Like, people don't realize that British Columbia doesn't run on hydro, runs on about 59% natural gas. Propane in Alberta heats Quebec.
After the break, a trip to the doctor may actually become a trip with your doctor. That's next. Remember when we used to say, don't do drugs? Well, now the province is saying just the opposite. Last year, the Alberta government announced it will be the first province to regulate psychedelic therapy. These new regulations just went into effect on January 16th. But what exactly is this? What's it used for, and how is it administered? Here to give us some of these answers is Cami Tammer from the Herbal Apothecary in Lethbridge, Alberta. Take a look. Cami, for those of us who don't know, first of all, what is psychedelic therapy and who would benefit from it?
So, psychedelic therapy is using things like psilocybin mushrooms to have a psychoactive experience and helping with treating mental health issues.
Okay, I have heard about this before, so now it's regulated for here in Alberta. So how is it administered? Is it literally like taking a psychedelic mushroom, or is it in a different way, a different form?
Yeah, that's exactly how it is. It's basically doing a trip, but you're doing it under the guidance of a licensed psychiatrist who is licensed to do regulated psychedelic therapy.
Okay, so it's used for mental health, mental illness even?
It is, yep.
Okay, so I've heard about people like going deep into South America and taking part in this in like some little hut. So you're telling me that people can do this now in Alberta. Is it done in a doctor's office? How? Tell me more.
So it will be done in a licensed facility. There are very heavy regulations right now. This is a brand new thing. So we're just kind of feeling our way through this, and things will change and regulations will update as this goes further on. But right now it has to be done in a licensed facility under a licensed professional.
Okay, so basically those are the rules. Can you tell us maybe more about the new rules regarding the use of this therapy that has just gone into effect January 16th?
Yeah, so it's not going to be like cannabis dispensaries where you're going to go out and buy magic mushrooms and go home and take them. That's not what this is intending for. This is for heavy mental illness therapy or treating things like PTSD, depression, anxiety that need to be done under the watch of somebody who's licensed to do this, because there's a lot of things that can come up and a lot of things that happen that need to have some guidance to go through these types of healings.
Okay, like a lot of people might think this is very bizarre. So tell me, how can a psychedelic trip suddenly cure your mental illness? It almost doesn't make sense.
So there was a lot of research being done in the 40s, 50s, and 60s using psychedelics. But the amazing thing about using psychedelics as opposed to pharmaceuticals, pharmaceuticals have their place, but it's more of a Band-Aid that's covering up things and just helping people to kind of get through their day and manage the day. But the psychedelics are actually going into the body, changing the neurotransmitters, and psilocybin essentially can reset or reboot the brain so that you can have a new way of thinking and changing your thought patterns.
That's interesting because, you know, I remember being a teenager and like your parents kind of preach at you, don't ever try that because it does that, just that. It changes those neurotransmitters. And to us, that seemed very like a bad thing to do.
Well, that's why it's necessary to do it under a licensed professional, because they're going to help you change those routes, change those thought patterns in a healthy way.
Is this like all natural, or has this been like chemically sort of changed in a lab?
This is all natural. I mean, you can chemically produce it in a lab, but we are looking with our company PharmaSil to produce these mushrooms and grow them naturally in a very controlled environment. But that's the beautiful thing, is this is natural. It works harmoniously with the body. We're big believers in plant medicine and healing the body through natural means. Medicine is great, it has its place, but we've seen the detriments and the downfalls to pharmaceuticals and long-term effects of people not being able to get off medications, or lots of side effects.
Here in Lethbridge, we have a lot of issues with opioids, but just out of curiosity, would these mushrooms be maybe an option for replacing opioid in some cases, or maybe even helping with the damage that opioids have possibly done?
Yeah, so this is not going to be a replacement for opioids. However, these psychedelic therapies can actually help with addiction recovery. They've shown a lot of promise in helping people with addictions to opioids.
After the break, a former NHL star is coming to the Windy City next weekend. We tell you who it is and why. That's up next, along with local stories from southern Alberta. Welcome back. Former NHL star Doug Gilmour will be in southern Alberta next weekend for the Lethbridge Hurricanes Celebrity Dinner. Gilmour says he's looking forward to coming back to Alberta. He adds that he's looking forward to meeting everyone at the dinner and being asked some tough questions about his career.
Back in the Toronto days, obviously it was 93 playoffs, and I'm sure somebody's going to bring up the missed call with Carey Fraser, etc. I can explain all that as well and my thoughts on it. But, you know, people ask you too, like how I got traded out of Calgary and kind of the steps that I took to kind of make it happen. So I knew I was going to be traded. I just didn't know where. I love doing Q&As. People want to talk to you about, you know, the past and the career and even the future for that matter, whether it's Calgary Flames or Toronto Maple Leafs or 5 other teams I play with. So I could keep going on, but no, it's going to be a lot of fun. And our group put it together that I could make it up, and timing was perfect.
The 16th annual Celebrity Dinner takes place January 28th at the Sandman Signature Lodge. More information on the event can be found on our website. The final numbers are in from the Angel Tree campaign in Lethbridge. A total of 3,571 children were able to receive a special gift under the tree this past Christmas season. Michelle Gallucci, the director for Angel Tree, says she was delivering gifts right up until December 24th.
Most of those deliveries are for difficult cases where children are rehomed into foster care. It was a really great year. It was an emotional year because we thought maybe we wouldn't make it, and then we made that plea to our community, and our community came through for us. And our volunteers and everyone are so thankful that we were able to create the gift bundles that create hope for our children.
Gallucci says there were 473 volunteers who helped to pack gifts over a 9-week period. And a special thank you to those wonderful volunteers, of course. So great. The Community Foundation of Lethbridge announced 3 new grant program applications totaling $750,000. The funds will go to charities throughout southwestern Alberta. The Community Priorities Henry S. Varley Fund for Rural Life and Youth in Action grant programs will be highlighted this time around. Staff from the Community Foundation say the charitable sector is facing a lot of challenges, and this money will be able to help many nonprofits moving forward.
2022 has been a hard year for a lot of folks, and so a lot of donations were down. So for us to be able to come out with this funding through our grants programs is really fantastic. It feels great for us. We're very optimistic about the groups that are going to come in and request this funding and the projects that they're going to be able to proceed with. Some of them wouldn't be able to proceed with their projects if we weren't funding them. So I think it's pretty critical that we're able to get this money out to the community right now.
The Community Foundation helped to distribute $1.1 million in grant funding throughout the last year. Lethbridge Mayor Blaine Higgin was at the Coast Hotel on Thursday morning for his State of the City address. It was put on by the Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce. As BCN's Micah Quinn explains, Higgin talked about a wide variety of issues impacting residents here in our city.
Community safety was one of the main discussion points from Lethbridge Mayor Blaine Higgin as he spoke to close to 200 people at the Coast Hotel during his State of the City address. He highlighted additional issues that the city needs to look at in 2023, including homelessness and the rise in tent encampments.
That's going to be a challenge this year. We had a challenge with that last year. We're looking at different ways to be able to help those folks in need with different additional shelter space, housing, but also safety. Because of some of the addictions and some of the different crime that comes from that within our community, is making sure that we're working with the businesses and the residents alike on how we can help them with safety so they feel safe within our community.
Lethbridge City Council recently approved a 5.1% tax increase for the next 4 years. Higgin talked about the city's justification for the decision.
We needed to do something as having a 0% tax increase over the previous 3 years and a 1.8 prior to that. With inflation, to keep up with inflation, keep some of the services that the community has asked for, the residents want, we needed to have that, as well as policing is a large part of our budget.
Cindy Bester, the CEO of the Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce, says events like this one are vital in connecting with our local municipal leaders and sharing the topics of concern that need to be addressed at the business level.
We are seeing movement and discussions and plans being brought forward. Hopefully, we heard some solutions today, so we're going to see January, February, March, some of those results.
When we return, the account of a local leader dragged through the streets, arrested, jailed, and now the next steps to influence life and politics. We'll be right back.